From Ticker Studios, this is The Connector, presented by Harper B.
You might have noticed our suburbs are at a turning point. As we face housing, pressure and climate challenges, a new way of thinking is emerging. I'm Belinda and this is The Connector. Today we're asking, what does the suburb of the future really look like? And to discuss this in more detail, I'm joined by Mike Day, who's the co-founder of Sharp Day. And I hope you walked here because I know how passionate you are about walkable cities.
I did, Belinda, yes. I walked some of the distance, that's for sure.
You've been a long-term advocate for nature-positive urbanism. In simple terms, what does this mean and why does it matter now?
There's a turn of phrase that we often use that we really, refers to, I think, the essence of our being, and that is that we're primarily dedicated to making better places for humans and safeguarding nature. So for me, it's always been trying to find a balance between the natural habitat and the human habitat. So with the merging of the business, or with Nigel Sharp and I getting together and forming Sharp Day, I think it's a wonderful opportunity for us to really sort of espouse those attributes and those virtues.
Well, I think you've been, talking about this for some time and globally in various cities. But how do you think urban design actually restores nature rather than just protects it?
Well, Belinda, I think the most important thing is to find the balance between, the human habitat and the natural habitat, as I said. So it's really important, I think, for residents to sort of feel an affinity with nature. A lot of the areas that we set aside for nature are fenced off and we haven't got access to them. It's so important, I think, for people to sort of coexist with nature. So it's really important that we that residents who are in these new neighbourhoods are able to sort of move through the open space and really feel an affinity with nature.
And you talk about timeless places. How is urbanism and nature linked to timeless places?
We often refer to timeless urbanism because really planning has been around for 5,000 years, and that the neighbourhood unit, I think, is the thing that we've been most invested in over the last few decades, is a return to those fundamental principles of having a discernible centre and a well-defined edge to the neighbourhood. And interesting you mentioned walking, because we think that is central, that we believe that the privileged and the preferred mode should be walking and cycling, so that really the thing we're constantly reminding ourselves of is that almost 40% of the population haven't got access to a car. That's the young kids, the teenagers and the elderly. So they get marooned in these suburbs and they're distant from daily needs, and they often haven't got access to a car. So and part of the problem has been the planning profession. I think we've separated the land uses, the business parks, the shopping centres, schooling and open space, that just everything is so distant, you're compelled to get in a car and drive.
So you've either got to get in a car or catch public transport. How can we encourage our suburbs to be more walkable? What needs to change?
Okay, I think the fundamental thing is that, particularly in the capital cities of Australia, there is a bit of a disconnect, right? They are the tale of two cities. That the urban fabric within the Melbourne, Sydney, Brisbane, the inner neighbourhoods have got all those attributes. They're compact, they're connected, they're mixed use and they're walkable, and they're blessed with transit. You think about Collingwood, Carlton, Fitzroy, South Melbourne, all of those neighbourhoods, and this is the distinction too between neighbourhood and suburbs. I think we've moved away from this notion of conventional suburban development and gone back to the timeless way of neighbourhoods. So the neighbourhood unit, I don't think in all of our travels around the globe, we've never found a vessel that delivers community more effectively than the neighbourhood unit. Its origins actually came from Pergamon in Turkey, and it was actually the distance a mother would holler to bring the kids in for dinner. So, it's that notion of being close.
What was that distance? Is that where the 12-minute suburb comes from?
No, well, that's where the 400 metres of the 5-minute walk, right. That's where it starts. But that's another thing I think that the planning profession has complicated the whole 20-minute neighbourhood, 15-minute city, the 10-minute walk. There's just too many different descriptions. We need to sort of simplify the whole process. That's where I think the state government here was really onto something with the 20-minute neighbourhood initiative. It was promoting Billy Giles Cortai and Ian Butterworth were sort of promoting the hallmarks, which were health and wellness, getting to 25 dwellings per hectare as a sort of a minimum threshold, promoting mixing of the uses. As a planning profession, I think we've separated all the land uses, so it's been very difficult for people to sort of be in a more compact environment, and also embracing the sustainable development goals. So a lot of the hallmarks for the 20-minute neighbourhood are really, really sound.
And nature positive and timeless urbanism approaches, are they actually tackling housing and climate challenges at the same time?
Yes, absolutely. So if you think about like more a walkable based neighbourhood, coming back to your point about the suburbs, the thing that we need to do early on is to get the transit into the suburbs. And there's a number of us have been into Shanghai and China more recently. There's a mid-tier transit vehicle that the Chinese are developing that we could bring in here. It's about a fifth of the cost of steel on steel, the standard trams, but it can carry the same number of people. Getting it in cost effectively early on, I think is going to alleviate the need for people to have, 2 or 3 cars. That seems to be the issue in the growth areas of Melbourne and the capital cities.
So, is there a catch there where we're wanting people to come into the cities, but then again we're wanting our suburbs to be mini cities on their own so that people are wanting to walk in their own neighbourhoods? Yeah, what's the balance?
Well, that's the essence of it. I think the debilitating impact of commuting, a lot of residents now can't afford to live close into the city, so they're moving out, they're commuting 1 or 2 hours a day. It's very, very, it's starting to impact on the family unit because parents are away from home. There's a lot of indicators, social indicators now that are revealing that the society is starting to break down because we're asking people to commute back into the city. What we should be doing, and Chris Lineberger talks about this in Washington DC, that we need to think about working from home or working close to home. It's not necessarily that you need to always work from home.
Touchy subject. Focusing on working from home, but do we need to have more business centres closer to more homes? That's
the essence. So I think satellite offices or workplaces are really what's required. And look at the commons now. Look at these CoWork Spaces that are just becoming so popular, and they're sort of emerging right through the city, including this sort of the suburban context as well.
But the key here is that we're bringing communities together. So whether that's in the suburbs or in the cities, it's a way to bring people together. And what we are finding is that when our suburbs become too much moving too far out, they're becoming vampire suburbs. How can we create that community? How can we bring what's so exciting about our inner city and our cities, where there is nature and there's thriving business and there's retail and economies happening? How can we bring that out to the suburbs?
You're right. It's about finding the balance between that, as I said, the natural habitat and the human habitat. Just reflecting on some of the successes that we've had in the past. If you think about just the neighbourhood unit and the notion of the young kids having independence of movement, so that's the young children and the teenagers that often haven't got access to a car, just the whole issue of walking to school, right? In 30 or 40 years ago, there was 60% of people were walking and cycling to school. Now there's about 12% of kids are walking to school, and parents are having to ferry their kids to school because the schools are so remote.
And what's the effect on drivers driving their kids to school? Like, not only is it not good for the children, what about the parents? How's it affecting the parents?
That's exactly right. Well, they say as a parent, if you drive your kids to school for the time that they're in school, it's almost 3 years off your life as a parent. So it's debilitating for parents, but more importantly for the kids, it gives them independence of movement. It's the life skills that they get walking and cycling to school are so important. I'll give you a really good case in point. On a project we did many years ago, we actually built 8 houses and released them to the education department in advance of the primary school being built. So the kids are walking and cycling to school from day one. The parents don't have to ferry them to school in the car. They're getting that independence of movement. And then the problem is the primary schools are now costing $30, $40 million to build, so they can't be built immediately. So we need to wait and provide these interim schools in houses, and they got converted back to houses after they were used as schoolhouses. We did the same with schools in offices and schools in shops. So I think we need to think a little bit more creatively about some of these urban outcomes.
What's been inspiring you globally? Because you've worked in all corners of the world, and what's inspired you? Who's doing great things? Well,
I often go to the US, and, as you know, to the UK and to Scandinavia as well. But just some of the lessons we've learnt in the US, there's some really enlightened, we refer to them as town founders rather than subdividers or developers. In the middle of last century, there was no such thing as a subdivider or a developer. You were classified as a town founder. You had your bust in the town square. It was the most revered profession. You're above doctors and lawyers. You're loved by your kids and your grandkids. Whereas subdividers and developers haven't got anywhere near that cachet now. So there's some of these town founders in America. One of One of them that's a standout, I think, is Steve Nygren, who's coming to Australia at the end of the year.
Great.
He's got a community called Serenby. Interestingly, his wife coined the term. It's the blending of serenity and being. 60% of the site is actually devoted to the natural setting. So the residents are sort of immersed in nature. The schools are actually 50% of the school, the time the kids are in school, is actually in nature. And the scholastic levels are going through the roof.
And as well as nature and sports and wellness, anchoring towns like these, which sounds amazing, how important is the transit-oriented development? And I mention this for two reasons. One, I recently toured Brent Cross Town by Related Argent, a development in the UK.
Yes.
It's 10 minutes by train from King's Cross, and it's a new town. All sorts of families on a park, there's sporting, wellness, community activities. It's an absolutely gorgeous town, and 10 minutes by train. How important is the transit-oriented development in Australia?
Well, one of the lessons I learnt 30 years ago, we did a master plan for a new community called Ellenbrook. It's about 1,000 hectares, 10,000 homes on the outskirts of Perth, and we put a transit corridor on the plan in '93, expecting maybe within 10 years to get transit. 3 governments promised it, they all reneged on it. Finally it came last year, but we shouldn't have had to wait 30 years. So you can think about all those people that got 2 and 3 cars. It's interesting, the Automobile Association of Australia are now saying to own and run the 2 cars in Sydney, Melbourne and Brisbane is $28,000 a year.
Quick one on high-speed rail, Melbourne to Sydney.
So the Clara project,
plan, something that we're both very passionate about.
We are, and I think that's how we met in the first instance. So Clara, I think the most ingenious concept there that the chairman was promoting for Clara was that we have not just a high-speed rail between Sydney and Melbourne, but the notion of 8 new cities. And it was this issue of rebalancing the settlement. We've got 2 mega cities of 5 million projected to go to 10 million, Sydney and Melbourne. Even in America, there's only 8 cities over 1 million. So it's crazy that we've got these 2 cities that are going to double in size and nothing in between. A high-speed rail, 1 hour and 58 minutes between the 2 cities.
And as we're just getting close to finishing up on time, so we don't want to wait 30 years. Let's push forward with, I think, rail-oriented or transit-oriented cities, mini-cities that can get us to the main cities but also create villages. But final words from you, if you could paint a picture of the ideal Australian suburb, what does it look like?
The ideal Australian suburb, I think, is immersed in nature. It's surrounded by nature. It's got a compact centre, so it's a discernible centre with a range of daily needs, the corner store, some basic shopping needs, a school, and some open space, and then the residents, a diverse range of housing within a 5 to 10 minute walk. Amazing
to have you on. I hope you're going to walk home from here, and it's been great to see you. Thank you.
Pleasure, Belinda. Thanks very much.
You're watching Ticker. The Connector is presented by Harper B. For more, visit harperb.com.au.